PDX Guitar Freak, and in this video I'm going to show you how to play the main guitar solo from the Scorpions' Rock You Like a Hurricane. Now a couple years ago I also did a guitar lesson showing you how to play the intro guitar solo. So if you're interested in learning that, I'll put a link down below where you can check it out. One more thing I want to mention before we get started is the guitar that you're using and how that might impact the difficulty of this solo. Now in the original song, lead guitar player Matthias Jabs was using a Gibson Explorer, which has 22 frets, just like my Gibson Flying V has 22 frets. And there's going to be a couple parts of the solo where you're going to be up there using that 22nd fret. You're going to be playing up in that vicinity. And therefore, if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you'll play this on a 24 fret guitar, which makes it easier to get to those higher registers. But I decided to go ahead and use a 22 fret because, well, if I can do it, you can do it. All right, let's go ahead and jump on into it. The first lick is, actually some people don't consider it part of the solo, but it leads right into it, so I'm going to include it here. And that's where he goes like this. It's pretty straightforward, it's pretty simple. You got the unison bend at the beginning, and then there's an open G note that's plucked. And I really think that's kind of what I call a happy accident. I don't think he intended to do that, but I'm including it because it's there. And then that bend at the 14th fret of the G string, that you want to do slow. The next section. Pretty straightforward. I mean, you're basically doing some pick slides. Now, Van Halen was the one who kind of invented the tap slides. And this is the same concept, but you're using your pick to do the slides, okay, to tap on and slide up. All right? And if you don't want to use your pick, you can use your finger, just like Van Halen would, and it makes it sound a little bit cleaner. It's up to you. Either way, I don't think most people will notice if you don't do it like the original. And then right before the next lick, he does just a pick slide and then a down the string slide with his fingers. And then you're going to want to palm mute everything until you get to that last note where you do a pinch harmonic and the bend. Okay? Then we've got kind of a blues bass type lick. Now when you see that 14th fret bend and release, sometimes people will pluck the 14th fret note right before that like this. But you can do it either way and it's going to sound just fine. Right, now the next part, we've got some very basic kind of double stop classic rock licks. Where you're basically bending up with the 14th fret of the G and the B string together, and then pulling off to the 12th fret of the G and B. And I've seen some people add in, right, when they come down from the bend, before they pull off, they hit the 14th fret of the G and B again. You can do it either way. Next, really quickly, he goes down to the open G and then... And what I like to do is add a little bit of vibrato to the first and the second note. It's almost like a semitone eighth note bend up, if that makes sense. Next we've got the ascending lick. And here it is slowly. Now you see when I go up to the 6th fret of the G followed by the 5-7-5 on the B, I used to play it differently. I used to go 7th fret G and then 5-8-8 on the B at that part. because I thought that was the logical way of doing it, because all the rest is in basically E minor pentatonic. But then when I went back to relearn the solo, I listened to it very carefully, and I see it tabbed this way a lot too. Not that tabs are always right, but it is the 6-5-7-5, which turns it into kind of a Dorian mode at that point. Okay, if you do it either way, I don't think anyone's going to notice. And then the last thing I want to mention, when you get to the very top and you do that, oops, you go. Again, here to slowly. You kind of hit the last note before you bend it up, all right? And that's one of the examples of where it's going to be easier to play this on a 24 fret guitar than on a 22. But there's another lick that's even going to be a little more challenging up there in those higher registers that we're going to get to in just a second. Now here's that lick that's way up there. And it's not really a difficult lick from the standpoint of the notes that are being played. It's just where they're being played. Way up there. Because normally, I mean, I'm used to playing high up here on that, but usually I don't play on the lower strings that high up that very often. So it makes it a little bit challenging. Again, if you got a 24 fret guitar, it'll make your life a little bit easier. But again, for the purposes of this lesson, I wanted to keep it to faithful to the original and use a 22 fret. The next part. Okay. You'll notice that I'll play the 14th of the G and the 15th fret of the B at the same time. You can ignore that. You can just play the 15th note of the B at that point like this. I think that the inclusion of the 14th fret of the G at that point was just kind of an accident. I think he didn't do it intentionally. You can play it either way. The next part. Slowly. The next part. Okay. Now you'll notice at one part I speed up a little bit. Here it is slowly. Okay, see where I sped it up? Now this next part is really not that difficult. It sounds more difficult than it is. Just practice the phrasing slowly until you get it right. And it's really not that hard. Here's how it goes. Okay. Again, slowly. See how I kind of pause it for a little bit on that 15th fret of the G string? For the last lick, we're going to go down here. Not so difficult, right? I've seen people tab it where they play it up here. But I've watched Matthias play it live and he does it down here. And at the end we've got a 7th fret G and B string bend. Alright, that was my lesson on how to play the guitar solo from the Scorpions' Rock You Like a Hurricane. As I said, if you want to learn the intro solo, I'll put a link to that lesson down below. If you have questions, let me know and I'll answer them as time allows. So until next time, rock on.